Steve Gamache here with another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review. And what we have this time is the Kohetsu SLD Gyuto 210mm knife. So this line of knives has a lot of cool, interesting features, and it really gives you a lot of bang for the buck. So this knife has a 3-layer construction. So it is composed of a center hard core cutting edge steel of what's known as SLD semi-stainless steel. It's easy to sharpen. It takes a very nice edge, and heat treats typically about 61, 62 Rockwell on that core steel. It's got a full stainless cladding on either side of that hard core cutting edge steel, and so this is a very kind of easy maintenance knife. I've got a 180 Gyuto version of this in my knife drawer right now. I've also used the Bunka and the Santoku, and it's a very nice line of knives. It's very good performing, and again, easy to take care of. You'll get a little bit of staining on the core steel, but if you typically wipe it down and don't really let it sit, it almost acts like stainless. The cladding is quite stainless in my experience with these knives. So the dimensions and weights will vary a little bit from knife to knife, but this particular one is 176 grams or 6.2 ounces. It's got a little heft to it. The edge length is right about 215, a little oversized, or 8.5 inches. 360 millimeter overall length. These are fairly thick at the spine, but then they thin out, and they've got a pretty high grind. So the performance on these is really quite good. The spine thickness I got on this one was about 4.4 coming out of the handle above the back of the heel of the blade, and then about halfway down I got about 2.25, and it pretty much keeps that. There's not a lot of distal taper until you hit the grind, which is pretty generous. It's a fairly high grind here from the edge up to, you can easily see where that starts, and then it kind of thins out. It's not a razor thin tip. Some of the smaller knives actually have thinner tips. My 180's really got a nice tip on it, and the Bunkas I've had a nice tip as well in terms of, flowing through things really quite nicely. It's got a fairly meaty knife at the back, but it does thin out pretty good at the edge. Again, the performance on these kind of belies the thickness of the spine. The blade height is pretty generous at 48.1. They've got kind of a medium wide neck on these that kind of flows to the handle on this particular model, and so pretty much anywhere along here you can put your finger for a pinch grip, so it's really nice for a pinch grip. The balance point is going to be pretty close to a pinch grip for me, but there's the balance point right there, and for me I don't even have to move that index finger. Pinch grip's pretty much right on the money there. You can see they've got kind of a semi-polish to this, so it'll get a little reflective in the light. Fit and finish on these is really well done, especially at the price point these are at. The handle is good basic octagonal ambidextrous handle with maple for the main part and black paca wood. And normally you've got to take a good look at these on the really thick spines like these, where the neck goes in, the tang goes into the handle. Sometimes there'll be some gaps there, so you want to take a good look, and if you got some gaps there, fill those in with something, the sealant of your choice, anywhere from beeswax to epoxy to whatever you like to do to kind of keep moisture out of there. The handle circumference is about 74 millimeters where the two materials meet. As I said, fit and finish is really nicely done on these. See if we can get a decent shot. It's a little tricky with the way these reflect, but let's try that. So they've got this really cool lattice work pattern, and again, every knife's going to be different. Some knives have a much deeper pattern. This one's a little on the shallow side, but you'll see a lot of different samples with different, a lot of them will have a little more like this all the way through, but it's a very interesting finish on it. It doesn't catch food in any manner, but it still gives you some texture and some interest to it. And I think these have hand engraved kanji. It's getting hard to tell on some of these knives, but did a little magnification on it. Looks hand engraved to me right there. Then you've got some embossed kanji behind that. As I said, the fit and finish, you've got a little bit of rounding and polish to the spine. You got some nice rounding and polish on the choil into the neck here, so it's very comfortable. Out of the box edge, I'll give it a 5, maybe 6 out of 10, but you can get these quite sharp. So if you do a little sharpening on your part, this will get very, very sharp if you let it, or if you do your part. Let's look at the cutting board profile and see where we're at. So this one has a lot of different stuff going on, and this should be fairly representative of the line of knives, but every knife can be slightly different on the edge profile. So here you've got a good flat spot towards the back 30% of the knife or so. And it really flows into a decent stop. You got a lot of good chopping area back here. You've got a transition kind of medium belly into a little bit more aggressive belly towards the tip. So I can get pretty high on this on a rock, plus go into a stop at the back. So this really has a lot of different types of profile on the same blade. And for a 210, 215, that's pretty neat. So this will chop great towards the back, push, pull, cut, glide, cut towards the middle, and you can rock this thing really nicely towards the front. Tip draws would be a little harder because you got to lift the knife pretty high for tip draws because that tip is kind of more midline with the blade, but really a very, very versatile profile. So again, I'm pretty high on this line of knife just because I've been using them for a couple, 3 years now, different models, and always had really good luck with them. And I've actually given a couple to some friends, and it's just worked out well. So good, really highly recommend these. So this is the Kohetsu SLD Gyuto 210mm knife.